That is acting crazy, but I think we're good now. Can you hear me? Yes? Anyone? Can you hear me? Maybe. I think you can. We are rolling right along here. Today I will be focusing on two main, using the methods of tons of theater practitioners in the actual industry. And here they are. My favorite, well, okay, I say that about every book, but this is really one of my favorite books. Theater by David Mamet. David Mamet, like him, love him, or hate him, is pretty open and honest. This book, I think you will enjoy. It is completely and utterly, unabashedly brilliant. He, just like he has his feet up in the, you know, in the chair here, he really, he doesn't care. He's honest, and so is his writing as far as his thoughts on the theater. So I would read this. It's a bit cynical, so I've broken it down in some of the answers that I'm going to give you today so that you the whole tainted by what he says. I think it's a really good read, and it's quick and fun and kind of gives you some perspective on the training and the money that people spend in getting training, whether it be for directing or acting, and how that is fruitful or not fruitful in the theater. So he is very, very... Okay, the next one is probably my go-to book as far as reading about what other people think. This is called The Director's Voice. And this is volume 2, I believe. I was using, yep, volume 2. There's a volume 1 of this as well, and it's fantastic. So if you can get your hands on this book, it's my go-to book. It's interviews with directors that are famous, directors on Broadway, directors in big, huge community or nonprofit ventures. There's some directors from DC in here, and of course a lot of people from New York in here, and you'll recognize some of your favorite. You can see the names here. I know I had to turn the quality of the video way down to get it to stream right now, so but you can see some of the names here, and I'll be referring to those in our talk today. Okay, today is going to be a question and answer. I've come up with directing questions. Whoa, that was not an earthquake, that was me dropping everything. Okay, I've come up with questions for young directors or people that are having to work with directors and they have questions on how that whole process works. And I've given you answers from these practitioners, and I will be supplementing it with answers from my own experience. Okay, so the first question or problem, I did this as problems, and I have them on little cards, you know, like, hello, problem. Okay. The first problem, my show is a hot mess and rehearsals are not productive. Someone actually sent me this and said, my show is a hot mess and rehearsals are not productive when I asked for questions. So I figure I'll tackle this one first. What do you do as a director when your show is a hot mess and your rehearsals are not productive? Well, Oscar Eustis, very, very famous director indeed, I have some quotes from him, and then I'll supplement it with my own knowledge. He says, what I think can't be directly taught is that every director is a leader, and every director must develop a specific style of leadership in order to draw a work out of other people. So in order to get work out of people, you have to be a leader in that. Sometimes you're going to work under people that aren't leaders, or sometimes you're not going to feel like much of a leader, but you have to develop your own style of leadership, that is. He goes on to say, if imitating someone else's leadership style, it's not actually leading because you're following someone else's style. So a lot of this is going to come with time and practice of developing your own leadership style. A lot of it is about mutual respect, and we talked about that during the first episode of this. So really, really going into the rehearsal process and going in as a director knowing that you are a leader and your job is to lead actors to be the best they can be. I can't repeat it enough. They are there to be the best that they can be. Okay? He says, one of the toughest demands about directing is that you have to get a lot of people to do what you want them to do. You have to want them to do what you want to do. You have to share the same want. And in the community theater or the educational setting where most of us are working, there's no money involved. So a lot of that, you know, want comes from I want to get paid in the professional world. But in order to get people on your side to do the art that you want to create and that you want your company or your group of people to create, you really need to work on getting them on board. And that's how your rehearsal process will clear itself up. It says, successful ways to motivate people are very subtle and can't be faked. You can't fake being nice. You can't fake having respect for someone. If your rehearsals are a hot mess and you are not the director and you have no control, or so you feel that you have no control over those hot mess rehearsals, there are some things you can do about being an actor and being a leader as an actor. There are a lot of things that you can do to steer rehearsal in a way that you need to without being bossy. Under no circumstances should you try to take over a rehearsal. But say that you are left to your own devices to stage a scene, or you're rehearsing a scene on your own. Step up and be the inspirational leader and take responsibility and passion for what you do, and try to spread that throughout the cast. As soon as you can make, and this is my own experience, as soon as you can make the cast a family, you have a show. No matter what your resources, what your money, if you can make that cast a family, then you can put on an artistic product, even with nothing more than a chair in the middle of a blank stage. It's that relationship building that keeps us going to the theater. We can tell, as an audience, we can tell casts that get along versus casts that don't get along, or casts that are stressed out versus casts that are comfortable, and casts that can really move on to the acting of getting people where they need to be and presenting characters in a way that's effective. So really trying to develop that family. You can do that from behind the scenes. You don't have to be the director to do that in a show. In fact, many of my shows have cast leaders that kind of just emerge. So if you want to work on that leadership aspect, or you're interested in directing and you don't have that natural inborn leadership thing going on, it's something that you can study. There are tons of books and tons of resources, tons of TED Talks. I was just talking to Mama J today about watching a TED Talk on leadership. That might be a really good route. We study all day long about theater, but maybe that's not the best route in some of these situations when your show's a hot mess. So look into leadership and figure out what makes a good leader and what you can do to kind of foster that relationship among your cast, and hopefully you'll be smooth sailing. Okay, next problem. One of my actors is constantly asking for more direction or answers. And for the first 2 episodes of this, I've been saying, don't give them answers. You ask the questions as the director. But you have an actor that keeps coming to you and saying, how should I do this? And where should I stand? And do you want me to do this? Do you want me to do that? And we have needy actors. If you're one of these needy actors and you feel like you're working with a pretty competent director, back off. Because a competent director is going to ask a question right back to you, and that's my answer. They're going to ask you, well, what do you think? What's motivating that movement? Where do you instinctually want to sit? What's your verb here? What's your objective? What's your super objective? They're going to ask you questions like that. What's your impulse? Get up there and do it. Let's see what impulse leads you to do. That's competent directing, and I don't know how many ways to tell people that, but a lot of people think that's unprepared directing or non-committal directing. Directors are there to put actors in a place where they can perform as the character to the best of their abilities. Giving you somewhere to be is not giving you the tools you need to perform well. Frank Galati says, another really famous director from New York and such, and you've probably seen his work here and there and on film, it has to be their choice. Go here, try this, see if an impulse works. What if as invitations to explore. So you can use the what if technique. What if you tried this? Go here and try that. See what your impulse does. Those are his ways of kind of tackling this. He says it's not what you say, it's what you refrain from saying that makes a difference as a director. The less is more approach is so important. So if you can just back up a little bit and let the actor start talking and ask those leading questions, a lot of times you can get better performances out of them, and explain what you're doing. It doesn't have to be a secret. You just say to the actor, I'm going to ask you questions so that you can make your own informed choices here. Okay? The director should only help the actor understand in what ways he or she has to function to clarify the story. Again, we're focused on the story, the plot, the characters, and your job as the director is to facilitate that transition onto the stage. Yeah, I see your question, Levi. He says, what if it is just a scared actor, someone who is too afraid to be wrong to make a choice? As a director, you have to tell them that you can't make a wrong choice. In acting, there are no wrong choices, which is the brilliant answer. There are honest choices and there are fake choices. So if it's an honest choice, it can't be wrong. So if you can get them to make an honest choice based on textual clues, based on character choices that they've made, based on objectives and super objectives that they decided on, what the central conflict of the play is, as a director, I would keep going back to that, because you've decided that. We talked about that in the beginning of these courses. You've decided what the central conflict is. So if you have that, you go back and you say, the central conflict is here. A wants this from B. And how do your choices fit into that? And really discuss it with them, but get them talking. Don't be like me right now and just talk. You stop talking and allow them to start answering questions. And a lot of times they feel more confident on stage. They understand why they're doing what they're doing. And we all know that that's hard to do when someone says, do this on stage, and you do it. You can do anything on stage. Like cry. Well, you can cry, but you don't know why you're crying, so it's going to look fake. Again, not wrong. Fake versus honest and believable. So those are the things I would steer away from wrong choices and make sure that every actor, if you're listening to this and you're an actor, you cannot make a wrong choice. You can make an uninformed choice, which comes from lack of preparation, but it cannot be wrong if it is informed. Hope that helps. Okay. The next problem that I've surmised is actors repeatedly have problems with diction or speaking too quickly on stage. This happens a lot. If you can... if you're a beginning actor and you can slow yourself down, somebody asked me this question, okay? So I'm trying to answer that directly. Hopefully this person is watching or will watch it. They asked me this question as an actor. I speak too quickly on stage. How do I fix it? Okay. Well, it's very much like singing. It's all about the end consonants on words. If you can get out those last few consonants, you will have clear diction. You have to be able to look at the words and explain every single one. It's going to feel like you're talking very slowly if you are a naturally fast talker. However, from stage, it will be completely understandable. And I am exaggerating my speech right now to kind of exemplify the way that you need to follow these directions. It's over diction. It feels like that. But from the stage, it doesn't. The way that I'm talking right now is monotone, and that's a no-go. But the speed at which I'm talking is digestible and understandable. So don't take my intonation for anything. I'm just trying to prove a point here. David Mamet, our friendly, cynical theater technician and master of the word, says, it is virtually impossible, given good diction, to speak too quickly on stage. There you go. There's your answer. You cannot speak too quickly if you have good diction. So get the speed out of your mind. It's not about the speed at which you're speaking. It's not that you're speaking too quickly. It's that your diction is not slowing you down enough. Your diction isn't clear enough. And I hope this clears up a lot of problems for some of you actors who have this. Most actors pause before each line. Don't do that. Pick up the pace. We didn't pay to come in and see you pause between lines, but I did pay to hear the story. So if you speak clearly and slowly enough so that I can understand each word, that will slow your pace down. Don't pause in between lines. What I hear a lot of, especially with beginning actors, is blah, 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 blah. Pause, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, could you have just kind of split the difference and said your line slower and took up the same amount of time? Because literally it takes the same amount of time to say what you're saying slower and eliminate the pause. That's what you need to do. Saying it clearly will slow you down. Okay, let me check on this question over here. What if the director, Christoph says, what if the director says cry, but the actor just can't? Is there something that the director should do, or is it the actor's problem? No way is it the actor's problem. If you can't cry, it's because you don't feel like it. Every human can cry. If you're in the right circumstances and your mind is in the right place and your character is in the right saga of their story, of course they can cry. If you can't cry, you're not being given enough to cry. And we will address that in one of the the questions that I have coming up, one of the problems. You can fake it, or you can tell the director, I don't feel it yet. It's not here for me. And really, the audience is supposed to be the ones crying. Let me get to this in just a second, because I have a problem that will address this a lot more clearly. Let me finish with this pace thing. Hit the final consonant, as I explained diction, I can't speak. Sorry. Hit the final consonant. Most actors lacking good diction swallow their final consonants and the last one or two words in the sentence. The way you can work on this, or have actors work on this if you are directing, is to have them in their everyday lives start speaking like I am speaking now. And really make sure that they are not trailing off at the ends of their sentences in everyday conversation, and that can be translated to the stage. A lot of people trail off at the ends of sentences, so have people be on the lookout, have like a little stormtrooper people looking out for you and saying, oh, you just trailed off at the end of your sentence in everyday life, and that can fix that problem on the stage. David Mamet says, speak up and speak out, and that's how we fix that problem. Try it. It will work. Okay. Problem. Tristan, I don't know where that's coming from, but that sounds scary. Yeah. Don't harm the actors. Whatever you do, he says, flick water on the actors. Don't harm that actor. Okay. Problem. Actors seem to break character in certain spots. Like, you can notice it as the director. For example, when they're leaving the stage, they kind of say their last line, and then their shoulders drop, and they hunch over, and they leave as themselves. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So, those moments when they break character, or when they're not the focus of the scene, they revert to personal, personal little tics that they do, and things like that. And ways to address this, because you can't tell an actor, don't do that. As soon as you say don't do that, they're hyper fixated on it, and they're going to work their hardest not to do it and forget everything else that they've seen. Because they're supposed to be in character. They're supposed to be a character and concentrating on that character struggle. Then all of a sudden you tell them, don't do this as your person. It basically pulls the wind out of their sails. And you don't want to interrupt an actor's work like that. So there's some things that we can learn. This is again from David Mamet. Take the scene off with you. That's something you can say. It's not a negative. You can say, oh, when you're leaving, take that scene off with you. Act it all the way into the wings. And a lot of times that will fix that problem, because it gives them a positive direction, something to do. And a lot of young actors are looking for that all-important directive that I keep telling you not to do. But if you really have a problem with this, and it's better to say to do than not to do, if that makes sense. There are some acting general tips that you can workshop with the entire cast. I'm going to list some of them here so that you have a common kind of rule book, and you don't have to fix that stuff once it's on stage. And if you do have to fix it, it's just referring back to your common systems that you've set up. For example, if you're going to gesture, do it with your upstage hand. That's as a common thing. We're gesturing with the whole cast. We're always gesturing with the upstage hand. It's a theater rule, but we're not going to present it as a rule as directors. We're going to say, this is our common ground. We're always going to gesture upstage. It opens us up, and it fits with the tension we need in the show, or, something like that. Never stand either parallel or perpendicular to the downstage lip. Stand at an angle. Diagonals are powerful. So that's the rule. But as a director, you're going to facilitate that with the cast by saying something like, diagonals are awesome in this show. In the painting I chose for the metaphor of the show, there are diagonals all the way through it. I want to capitalize on diagonals. Whenever possible, let's utilize diagonals. And then in the rehearsal process, you can say to a person or the whole cast, remember the diagonals. Let's use impulse and try to find diagonals. Instead of saying, hey, you can't stand like that. Don't stand like that. Move your feet. You can't do that. You can't stand profile. You can't stand full on. Again, wind out of sails. You can't do that. You got to be positive about it and develop these cast understandings. Keep your eyes up. The eyes are the mirrors to the soul, so keeping them up is going to be very helpful. A lot of times, especially if on an elevated stage, people will look down, and they'll look down toward their feet and down toward the audience, but all the audience sees is eyelids, like, what? And so we're going to encourage the whole cast to keep their eyes up. eyes up, eyes up. And what that does is it lets the audience in so much more, especially in like a realistic drama. If you can see into the eyes of the character and they're really in character, they can be as in character as they want to as an actor. But if they're not looking at the audience or opening their eyes, we don't see it. We don't feel it as the audience. So we have a common understanding that we're going to keep those eyes up. And so in rehearsal, you can say something like, everybody, eyes up. Remember, eyes up. Instead of, hey, you looking at the floor too much. Stop doing that. Don't do. Bad. Okay. And the last thing David Mamet says to set up as a natural convention for your cast is to relax, keep your arms and hands still, and gesture only with purpose. Again, you can't yell at somebody for this, but you can ask a question, because they're, as we've learned, a director's best friend. So I could say, hey, Levi, I saw you just gestured there. Why'd you do that? And then you answer me with something brilliant, and I say, that's amazing, great, sweet. Okay, keep that gesture. If you feel like it, I like it. Go with that choice. If you don't do the gesture again, I don't care about the gesture. I care about the choice. That's an amazing choice. Yes. Everybody, this is the choice for that, and we're going with it. It came from his impulse, and I love it. Okay, from now on, we're gesturing upstage. Remember that upstage hand, and let's keep going. I've acknowledged Levi. I've acknowledged that he had a great, brilliant idea. I said yes, because the director's job is to say yes, especially when an actor makes a bold choice. I've said yes to it. Tell him that the gesture is not the be-all, end-all. Maybe the gesture is there next time. Maybe it's not, so that I free up impulse so that he doesn't have to do it the same way every time. And then I've also reminded everyone, instead of saying, Levi, you gestured with your downstage hand, I've reminded everyone that if you're going to impulsively gesture again, you need a reason behind it, number one. And number two, you need to use your upstage hand. So there's it's a lot of nuance and a lot of really soft ways of speaking to get what you want. It's not manipulation. This is giving the actor the impetus and the confidence to do their best job on stage. If you can give them a little bit of onus in what they're doing and ownership, I'm telling you, the performances improve drastically. You can, Christoph, you can say, you know, that upstage gestures are a theater rule. You can say that in the rehearsal, before the rehearsal process, not in while they're on stage blocking or something, because then it's an admonishment. You're kind of calling them out and making them feel foolish in front of a whole cast. Do you see the difference? So if you're saying this at the beginning, like after the table read, and then you set up your conventions as a cast, these are the theater rules, great. This is our conventions that we're going to use as a cast. You're not calling anyone out. You're just going back to those positive conventions instead of just saying, no, don't do that. And it's not about hurting feelings. Gosh, everybody hurts feelings in the theater. It's about, again, giving that actor confidence. And as soon as you kill an actor's confidence, they become themselves on stage. They become basically undirectable because they don't feel like they have anything to benefit the cast, and they don't feel like they're worth being there, and they don't feel valuable. So you really need to keep their what's the word? Next question that we have here. I'm having trouble with the villain in my show. This was an actual question. How do you portray anger? This is brought on from the first episode of this. How do you portray anger so it's not a screamy, shouty match? My villain is too villainous. There's not enough compassion for him. If you want to see really great villain work, I would recommend going to Paula Vogel's How I Learned to Drive. That play is fantastically written. With a really good playwright, the villain kind of has complexity built in. Uncle Peck is the perfect villain to practice villainy on. He's a really, really skeevy, bad guy, but for some reason, when you watch that show, no matter who you are, you feel compassion for him. I don't know how she does it in the room, but he's doing really bad things to children. What? How did that just happen? Is playing against the villain, and here's the answer that Julie Taymor, one of my favorite directors, because the character. Instead, find the vulnerability and believe in your character's cause. Okay. We're having really bad right now. Okay. She's talking about Scar in The Lion King. And if you play Scar as the villain the whole time, if he's just mean, to get a villain to be villainous, you need to play the opposite. and get that vulnerability in there so that you can, I mean, not all the time do you want your audience to feel compassion for your villain, but if you can get to that point, if the script warrants it, it's very, very powerful. And nobody that's even just watched 60 Minutes or 48 Hours or Dateline or CSI or any of those shows, all of the evil people have a motive. They know, you know, they've justified it, just they don't walk around this part. So really work, you can't tell an actor that. I'm going to keep going back to realistic how you would, and that's the whole point of today's episode. How do you actually implement these things? Could you tell me something good about this guy right now? And then when they build off of that, okay, great. I really love to see more of that on stage. And really positive things, but you, the director, know what you're going for. The character trying to find the vulnerable passionate for you is not going to work. All of a sudden, you're going to have a wishy-washy villain. You can't do that, and that's just unbelievable. So you need to ask questions to get to the part that you're trying to achieve, and asking questions about the vulnerabilities in backhanded ways, asking about what are you most confident right now as this character, what are you most confident about, what are you most proud about, what reason could you possibly give me for doing this bad thing? I need to know why. Was it something in your childhood? And just ask a lot of questions, not too many, but ask enough so that you can pull that out and say, okay, remember that when playing this scene. And then go forward and use it as a workshop. Say, we're just going to workshop it. I just wanted to have some answers, and now let's see what the scene looks like. And always put the onus on the scene rather than let's see what you can do with this. As soon as you say what you can do with this to an actor, the pressure is crippling. I don't know what I can do with this. I'm not even a real actor. All this stuff starts flooding in, right? I shouldn't even be here. I don't even know how I got in this cast in the first place, and now you want to see what I can do, and I don't know what I can do because I'm a fake. That's what we all feel like inside. Every single artist on the planet feels like a fake. So as soon as you tap into that and put them on the spot, they think they're going to be revealed as the fake that they are. And all y'all know what I'm talking about, okay? Don't do that. Acknowledging that they feel fake is enough. Acknowledging that inside. Because you probably, as a director, feel fake. I feel fake every time I direct something. I'm like, I'm not a real director. I don't know how I got this job. I feel fake right now. I'm not a real teacher. I use books. You know, we all have that insecurity inside. And so if you can not attack that head on with an actor, I think you'll be much more successful in getting accurate portrayals and more confident. The more confident an actor is, the better their stage presence, their delivery, their characterization, the better everything is. Yeah, that's how that works. Okay, this is a musical theater problem. On viewing a scene and a musical sequence, I feel that the song emerges abruptly from the scene surrounding it. We are jarringly moved from one world of the musical and become aware of the artificiality of the whole show. You know what I'm talking about, when someone just bursts into song. What do you do as a director? Because you can't change the script, I already told you that. And now we're sitting here and the script says we go from one scene right into a song. When this happens and it's bad, the audience starts laughing or trying to hold in their laughter because it's so corny. Do you know what I mean? And, oh gosh, when that happens, we all kind of take a step back and, oh yeah, we're watching a musical. So I'm going to give you some advice on how to stage this because a lot of it has to do with the scene before. And you can kind of fix this. Unless you're in a show like Title of Show or Book of Mormon or something like that where you're supposed to bust into song and it's funny and it's part of the shtick. I'm not talking about those kind of shows. I'm talking about shows where the musical is the heightened form of emotion and you need to get to that music number because the emotions are getting to that point. Hold on one second. Yes, Levi, the villain's job is to elicit sympathy sometimes from the audience to make them hate them. So if the audience hates the villain, fine, but they need to feel something else other than hate at some point during your show. If otherwise, they're just flat the whole time, and we don't get that full catharsis that normally follows with a villain's demise at the end of, you know, a standard show. So you want to the whole thing, even with not villains, with every character, is we want complexity and dimension, and getting the audience eliciting emotions that are various is going to help you with that. Okay. Now we're back to our jumping straight into songs. Speaking of abrupt transitions, that was one right there. Okay. The director's job is to make the musical number a necessary, inevitable, and emotionally logical extension of the scene. Like, we had to go into song right here. There was nothing else we could have done. We had to go into song. So rather than taming the staging of the musical sequence, you may need to build the rising urgency and importance of the moments leading to it. Okay, so that's the scene before, like I said. We turn up the emotional, dramatic intensity until there is nowhere left to go but into song and dance. Instead of forcing actors to scale that steep wall, like you have all this weight on your shoulders and now you got to go into a song and figure it out, we build a ramp so they can kind of use it to go up onto that plateau where the musical sequence is hiding. That's a really long definition. I'm going to be doing in 2 weeks a whole session on musical theater, and that's where I really feel fake. I'm like, oh God, I'm not a musical theater director. I feel fake inside. But at the heart of it all, that music is the best form of communication you can have with an audience. So as a director, the scene before it needs to slowly, and we talked about building tension before, build tension or build an intensity or emotion to rise to that song. Knowing that that song is the paramount, it's the pinnacle of whatever that scene was before. It doesn't have to be the climax of the whole show. How would you do that with 20 songs? But of the scene before it, it climaxes from that, like a little baby climax, with song. And knowing that will help you immensely. I mean, I can give you like hands-on examples all day long, but just keeping that in the back of your mind, if your musical number feels jarring, go back to the scene before it and work up to it. There you go. That's your... Okay, next problem. The audience isn't emotionally invested in my show. They are not laughing or crying. What can I do to fix this? That means that you're watching the audience and they're pulling out their playbills, they're pulling out their cell phones. They're not emotionally invested in this show, and they should be. It's a show that warrants this, or it's a very slapstick comedy. They should be laughing, or it's a drama. They should be crying, and they're not. Well, first of all, you can't control an audience, but you can control what you put on the stage, and maybe the audience will follow suit. David Mamet says, nobody comes to the theater to see actors laugh or cry. They come to laugh or cry themselves. I love this quote. I read it over and over again every time I surface it in one of his texts. I'll read it again because it's hard to take in. Nobody comes to the theater to see actors laugh or cry. They come to laugh or cry themselves. Now, as a person that has cried in very many shows, I mean, fallen out into the floor in horrific, hysterical bouts of tears, I love to go to the theater and have a good cry. I love to go to the theater and have a good laugh, but I never thought of myself as going to theater to experience that. But I guess I do. Okay. He says, the most ancient and correct theatrical adage is, if you laugh, they won't. If you cry, they won't. Okay. I can get on board with this. So let me just stop there. We talked about this in the first episode and the second episode. Doing the opposite. So if you want to cry, it's you forcing yourself not to cry that's so powerful. So if your director, this is what he says, if you have to cry on stage, God forbid if a director says you must cry on stage right now, treat it as a physical request and forget the emotional significance. Leave it up to the audience. Physically, I need to cry on stage right now. Okay, I'm going to do it, but my character, I don't feel it inside. This is David Mamet's advice, and I kind of agree with him. Sometimes you just got to do what the director's asking you to do. Asking an actor to cry on stage is not appropriate. I'll be the one to raise my hand and say that is not appropriate. But some people don't watch these videos, or they don't know that about directing, and if they ask you to cry on stage, or ask you to get to a point where you can cry on stage, and you have to, then fake it. Put your hands in your... and fake it. That's the only advice I can offer. Otherwise, it's much more interesting to watch you not cry on stage and the fight to not cry, where your eyes are welling up and you're biting your lip. That makes me cry. Every single time makes me cry. That when someone, you know what I'm talking about, when they're fighting the tears, oh my gosh. every single time. So that, to me, is the more interesting choice. So what if you have an actor that does start crying, and you're like, whoa, if they cry, then the audience won't cry. You can't say, don't cry there, don't cry, I told you not to cry. No, what do? You say, I like your choice there. I like that you cried. That's interesting. Maybe let's try it where you, can I see it when you don't quite cry? Like, get all the way up to that, but give me another physical feature other than crying. Do something else impulsive with your body instead of that physical release of tears. Let me see what that looks like. And they say, okay, I can't do that. I'm not a real actor. I'm a fake. I can't do that. I can't do that. So then you say something to the effect of, that crying on stage, did you feel it? Did it feel right? And they're going, well, I mean, it felt okay. Or, oh, it felt so good. Okay, why? Why did you cry on stage? And they say, blah, 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 blah. Are you confident? Are you embarrassed? How does that crying make you feel? Start asking questions, okay, to get to the end result that you want. You want them to not cry on stage, okay? But you can't say that. And you can't put them on the spot and say, try this and don't cry on stage this time. But you can ask them questions that feed them the information that they need to have as the character. Because if they're crying on stage, we've got a flat situation. And you can't, again, like Christoph was saying, why can't you just say that? I mean, you can. You definitely can. You're just not going to get an authentic performance out of someone. And the whole realm of what we're doing is about getting authentic performances out of people. So try to get them to hold back. Yeah, okay. Problem. I have young actors who often struggle through parts of the play. How do I prevent them from looking unconfident? Okay. The number one time that this happens is during curtain call. When you physically apologize. Your actor apologizes on stage to the audience. They don't bow, or they come out and they go, Under no circumstances should that ever happen, no matter how bad the show is. And 9 times out of 10, the actor thinks the show was worse than it actually was. You know what I'm saying? So that needs to be a cast rule set up. No matter what happens in the show, if a bomb goes off during the show, or if like the curtain falls, or whatever happens, we go out there and we thank the purpose of a curtain call is to thank the audience for their time and their attention. So you're going out there as not to bow and get received as a thanks for your performance. No. Start thinking of the curtain call a different way. You're going out there to thank the audience as a formality. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your time. Thank you for spending money on this show. And you bow. You do not fidget. You do the most stoic thing that you can do. You don't pick up props on the way out if they've fallen onto the floor, like flowers or confetti. That takes you out of the moment. You are there as a very formal way of acknowledging their presence. And that can make you look more confident on stage. No matter what. Do not apologize. Set that up as a cast rule from go. Don't apologize in rehearsal. Don't let that happen. Somebody says, oh, I'm sorry, that sucked. And say, it didn't suck. It was just one variant of a scene. Let's try a different variant. That did not suck. There are better and there are worse, but it didn't suck. Keep the positivity going, and that is really important. So, if you have an unconfident actor, all you have to do to fix that is feed their ego. Boost their confidence. When they do things that are great, keep telling them they're doing things that are great. When they do things that look ill-confident, rerun the scene. Ask them more questions so that they feel more prepared and more confident on the stage. Okay, I'm trying to rush through these so I get to them all. Rhythm. We're going to hit rhythm 2 more times. Rhythm and pacing. The rhythm of my play or pacing seems off. How do I fix it? Okay. Mark Brokaw says, the rhythm is all in the punctuation. Have actors look at the page because they are often putting their punctuation on the author's words. I never thought about that until I read this the other day. That is absolutely true. The wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable, or pausing in the wrong place. That comma or that dash or that period is there for a very specific purpose, if we're trusting our playwrights, and we should heed to that. That a lot of times will fix your pacing because the author knows how they want it said or how it needs to be said, and it's on the page. So just go back to the page. Okay, so that helps that. He says how that punctuation adds up, character to character to character, is the rhythm. Okay, I like this. I like clean-cut solutions. Fine. I'm going to try this in my next rehearsal. There's mystery in that treasure map of punctuation. Why is it punctuated the way it is? Don't let an actor impose his own rhythms or speech patterns or gimmicks. So some people talk with a natural cadence in their everyday lives, like your friends, and you know that they go ba-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da. And then on stage, they start doing that as Sweeney Todd. And you're like, but, wait, what? Go back to the punctuation. Check it out and see what's going on. I like it. Good idea. Punctuation in music is in different forms too, staccato and rests and all of that stuff. So I think that would probably work both ways. Think. All right, next problem. We're having problems with comic timing in my show. I love when people talk about comic timing because nobody actually knows what comic timing is. You just say it has good comic timing if the audience laughs at the right spot where you think they should laugh. But really, what is comic timing? Because I've never gotten a clean definition on this in all of my years. But David Mamet, by God, he's going to take this on. He says, never walk on a laugh, yours or another's. Many actors try to fill what they consider an awkward pause or a laugh by taking stage. I like this rule. It's steadfast. It's black and white. Nobody laughs while people are moving. I mean, nobody moves while people are laughing. You get that weird, like, Frozen thing, you know, while people are laughing and they're finishing up. Don't move. Yes, we know not to talk over that because you can't hear, so actors most of the time know. But we're also going to make it a cast rule that we don't move and we don't know when they're going to laugh. So we make this, like, rule that we freeze, not a hard freeze, but a soft, like, relaxed freeze while we're waiting for them to stop laughing every time they laugh. Cast rule, period, end of story. I think this fixes your comic timing. Well, David Mamet says so it must be true. Never walk on an actor's lines. If you are moving, the attention will go to the movement and away from the line. So we have these problems all the time. This could be a whole nother problem card. When you have people in the back or in the foreground that are in the ensemble and they're stealing focus from the main. This happens in Les Mis all the time. You start to watch someone pouring a beer, like guzzling a beer in the back of Master of the House, and I stop focusing on the Thénardiers entirely. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? They just steal the total focus. So, this could be used for that too. If somebody's saying a line, nobody else is moving around. And this is harder. I'm not talking about choreography or dance or musicals or anything like that. I'm just talking about in general when there's like a really strong scene going on and it's supposed to be funny. If you don't laugh, if you don't move on the funny moments, a lot of times the audience misses it because they're paying attention to something else. It's not that your timing's off, it's that their attention was off. Wow, that's not... maybe I'm not so fake after all. Okay. Next, I have 2 more problems and 5 more minutes. These are quick ones. I've decided to become a director and I can't find work and or afford it. Meaning that you can't find someone who will hire you because you're inexperienced, or you just can't find anybody hiring in general, or you can't afford to because you need to get a real job and pay your bills and get insurance and stuff like that. Boy, do I know this. Michael Mayer, though, and Michael Mayer knows everything. Hey, Michael Mayer, he says, seize every opportunity that you can. I did my theater work after my regular work. Find a job you can live with that hopefully feeds your soul while you're making your work, and do your work wherever and whenever you can. I love this. I'm doing work everywhere. Everywhere in Texas, I'm doing work. Any work and all work. I make sure my heart's in it. Like he says, it's feeding my soul, but I'm constantly looking for work, and as a director, you will be too. Anne Bogart follows up on this. I love Anne Bogart and her viewpoints. You know that. Her is kind of awesome too. I don't think that there's such as initiate project. And if he's not working, start your own. I did that. Start your company. Start your own. I'm going to do a staged read, or I'm going to write a play. A lot of directors are great playwrights. Start your own. And you do a proposal. I want to do this play and this proposal, and this is how I'm going to do it. Just propose it to yourself. Answer Christoph's question right here. Should playwrights direct their... But it's also good to get different eyes on it. So I think there are benefits to both. I think there are benefits to doing... But I also think that there are benefits... I'm sorry, this stream keeps cutting out. Lame. So stage business, pull from the line. What you talking about, Christoph? Stage business, pull from the line. Anyway, I guess I'm gonna sing. Sorry that the video is kind of crapping out here at the end. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you in my next video. Okay, I think we're streaming. I just want to say bye. I'll see you in my next video, but I hope that you have a wonderful week. I hope this was helpful. Next week, we're concentrating on the new and emerging and older versions of experimental theater in New York and other places, and it should be a total blast. Okay. Yay! Have a wonderful week. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!